All right. We're behind the scenes right now, so we can,
Sounds good.
we can be behind the scenes. But I'm going to hit
Oh, my cables.
record once Nick gets himself set here.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Here we go. What week are we on now? 9?
9.
9. Okay.
9.
Okay, here we go. Week 9.
Hello.
In the know in the 920.
Woo!
We're here today with Dale Pynenberg.
Woohoo!
We are super excited. This is going to be great.
I'm looking forward to it all week.
Yay! I'm excited. All right, well, here we go. Let's start it out with a little intro.
In the know in the 920.
This is our official intro music, Dale.
Love it.
Gotta love that copyright-free music.
For sure. Boom. Every week. Like I said, it just always gets me in the spirit.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right, well, we're here with Dale, RightWay Home Inspections. Woo. He's amazing. Call him for all your home inspection needs, number one. But Dale, we would love to hear all the things about you today.
Yeah, sure. So, starting off, a little background.
Yeah.
Years ago, when I was a teenager, I started construction. I started building harvester silos, the blue silos that you see out
Oh,
in the farms.
cool. Yeah.
Very interesting job, but dangerous, and,
Sure.
and the hours were weird. So finally, I got a job as a mason tender.
Yeah.
And became a mason and did that for over 20 years. So that was
Wow.
a really interesting job. I loved it.
Yeah.
It also gave me a really good chance to learn about the construction industry as a whole. So not only was I learning a craft while I was there doing the masonry work, but I was able to see what all the other contractors are doing, learn about the electricians, the roofers, the plumbers, and I loved it so much. During my lunch breaks, I would walk around with my sandwich, eating it, just asking people questions and say, "Oh, why
That's
did you guys do it
awesome.
that way?" Or,
That's when you know you like what you're doing. You're in the right spot.
It is.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that a lot. What I didn't like was I couldn't speak with the clients.
Sure.
We did mostly large commercial projects. So there's always a disconnect. It was just kind of the blueprint and get to work. And I didn't, get a lot of that feeling of what was going on with the clients. So home inspecting was, something I wanted to do for a long time. And I got my license about 8 years ago, opened business 7 years ago.
Sure.
And what I love about it is I'm able to work with the clients one-on-one, during one of the most special times of their life.
For
They're
sure.
buying a house, so
It's exciting.
it is exciting, and I get to be a part of that excitement. So
That's
that's
awesome.
what I love. So I still get to do construction stuff where I'm inspecting and seeing how things are put together. I get to work with the clients during this wonderful time of their life, and then I also get to teach. I get to show them what's going on with their house, how things work, how to maintain it,
Yeah.
which is something I also really enjoy doing. So
That's awesome.
So it kind of combines my favorite three things
Right.
down to one. So
That's awesome. Like I said, if you can put all that together, you know you're in the right spot.
right. So
Yeah. That's so cool.
I enjoy going to work every week.
Very good. Well,
that's
that's
it. That's
good. That's how life should be, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Find something that you love. Absolutely. Cool. Well, okay, so you've been hard at work for a couple of years now, and just a few, right? Like me,
Yeah.
a few. So tell us about the home inspection process. So if I'm buying a home and I hire you to be my home inspector, what is going to happen?
Yeah, so the first thing, of course, we schedule the appointment. A home inspection takes approximately 3 hours, for me to go through the house and figure out what's going on. And then after that, we go back to the office and I write the entire report.
Sure.
Send it off to the client. So, the first important part is, scheduling a date and then making sure it's available with the sellers as well, too, so that
Sure.
way it fits them. Once that's in, we go ahead and look through the house, starting from the outside of the house, roof, exteriors, grounds, conditions, driveways, the whole works, and then work my way through the whole house. What I'm looking for is starting off as defects. That's something that's either going to be, if not repaired, a major issue with the house that'll cause further damage, or something that creates a safety hazard for my clients.
Sure.
So, and that's a lot of different things. And then, of course, on top of that, we're still looking for maintenance items, things that are need repair. So really, our clients get to understand, exactly the full condition of the house before they purchase it. But with that said, home inspections aren't just for when we're offered to purchase. You can have
Sure.
a home inspection performed anytime you want.
Absolutely.
And I get some clients that'll do that. We call it maintenance inspections. Especially people with larger homes, or if they have mobility issues and they can't get around everywhere. They hire me to come in. I'll go through the whole house, perform an entire inspection, and they'll get a comprehensive list with pictures and diagrams showing what's wrong with the house and what
Sure.
needs repair. And it's all in different categories, so it'll be, defects or something that, we should really attack first, something that, again, if not repaired, will cause further damage. Then we've got repair items, things that, are just needing repair or just maintenance, things that, we should long-term, look at fixing.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. And like you said, it can be for anybody at any time. I
Right.
know a lot of our sellers too use it as a, kind of a pre-inspection, we call it, just to head off any issues right off the bat.
Exactly, and you brought up a really important topic was the pre-inspections. Every week I go into houses for my clients who are purchasing the house, and I find all these little things that I'm thinking, man, if the seller would have either just fixed this or simply disclosed it in their seller's disclosure sheet. They could have said, hey, we're aware this doesn't work. We've priced the house accordingly. It's yours. It would have fixed everything. But now, we found it during the inspection process. Of course, our client wants it repaired or they want money off the price of the house, and it really slows down the selling process. And
That's a good
sometimes,
point.
sometimes even kills the whole deal. When they come
Oh,
in,
for sure.
it scares clients away. Electrical is one of the biggest things that is because it's unknown for so many people that when my clients see all these electrical issues, it just scares them. So, if we can have those tidied up before we sell a house, it makes a big deal.
I completely agree with you. It is. It's such a big deal. And like you said, too, one of the big things that we always stress with our sellers is disclose, 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 right? Always better to disclose everything that you know about the house up front. Just be open and honest about it. I always say when you're filling out a real estate condition report, it doesn't turn you into a home inspector. You don't need to know anything that you don't know.
Right.
But if you know something, disclose it. Because, again, now it's pre-disclosed. And truthfully, the way that the contracts are written, at least in our state, is that, if it's on there, if it's pre-disclosed, the buyers, if it's something that's important to them, then need to ask for it right in their initial offer to purchase,
Correct.
right? You're then there, if you're doing a home inspection for a buyer, to uncover things that were not already known, right?
Correct. And there's a lot of things,
Yeah.
People will open up windows and the sash will fall apart, and sometimes the seller's standing right there. They say, "Yeah, we never opened that window," and they don't know,
Right.
So
Right. There is absolutely those kinds of things. But yeah, I always encourage sellers, think of everything because, again, it helps protect you as a seller too from somebody ever trying to come back and say, wait a second, you knew about that,
Exactly.
that kind of thing. So,
unfortunately, I get those calls once in a while.
oh, I'm sure you do.
It'd be a home buyer who purchased a house and they've moved in and found issues and they want to come back and sue the seller.
Yep.
And I haven't been involved legally with any of those yet.
Sure.
I usually give them some advice and
Yeah.
hopefully they can figure it out. But because it's difficult, they have to prove that they knew about it. But those aren't fun for anybody. So.
No,
Yeah.
that's tough. Do you get a lot of, well, I'm sure you work with obviously, or you run into a lot of first-time home buyers. Do you work with a lot of people just in general that are probably just blown away by all of the things that are uncovered in a home, right? In a home inspection?
There is,
yeah.
Unfortunately, I've had some clients come to tears, and we really work on a delivery process because we don't want to scare anybody.
Right.
There's a house for everybody, and everything's fixable, but there's a lot of information sometimes to get at once.
Right.
And,
Right.
And again, sometimes it does move them to tears even. So
Yeah.
that's a bad day for everybody. But
I agree, but it's a lot of it is, like you said, managing expectations and the delivery of things, right? It's not meant to be scary. It's not
Correct.
meant to be a bad thing. It's all meant to be helpful and good information. And I think, that's something that we try to work with our buyers on too. When we're working with the buyer is you're buying a used home, unless you're buying a brand new construction home.
Yep.
Right. But otherwise you're buying a used product. Everything is not going to be perfect. And even with new construction, everything is not perfect.
And that's a really
Yeah.
good point. We've been doing a lot of new construction inspections
Mm-hmm.
lately, and unfortunately, we've lost a lot of talented people in our trades. So there's been a lot of issues that we've
Sure.
been running across on new construction. So even if you're buying a brand new house, before you close on the house, have an inspection done.
Yes.
We've run across things. I had a house last summer, the roof was hail damaged.
Mm-hmm.
Had they closed on the house, hail damage is an act of God. That's something that wouldn't have been covered by a builder's warranty or anything
Right.
like that. That would have been my client's fault. And their home insurance could have said that happened pre the insurance contract. So
Right.
it could have been their bill.
Right.
So it really helps to go through. And also cosmetic issues are hard to prove afterwards. So
Yes.
during new construction, normally during home inspection, we don't do cosmetics, because again, like you said, it's a used house. New construction is a little bit differently, though. I carry a roll of blue tape. I encourage my clients to come along. We look for cosmetics as well as major defects in the house. So
Sure.
that way they can get an address before they even close on the house.
Right.
Because afterwards, a builder can simply say, you caused that. There's no way to prove that, if it's been an issue that was done during construction.
Yeah, for sure.
I
Well,
love-
and you don't want to buy something brand new and it's like already nicked and scratched and all of the
Exactly,
things,
exactly.
right? It's
Wait,
like,
what did I
fix
do?
that.
Hey, wait a minute.
No, but yeah, I love the blue tape inspection. It's just fun going around and sticking tape everywhere.
Well, right. If you're going to buy something, you're spending that kind of money, especially nowadays, the housing costs, and things have increased as well. You're going to spend that kind of money. It's like you want to make sure that it's a solid, sound investment for sure. I know, speaking of new construction too, we recently had one where the new construction foundation wall was deflected,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
bowing essentially for those that are not, doing this every day, like almost 2 inches, I
That's a lot.
think.
That's a lot.
And it sounds like it probably had something to do with the excavation process and hitting,
The backfill.
hit the wall or something. But like, have you seen that kind of thing before?
On my own house.
Really?
We built a house 5 years ago.
Sure.
And while they were backfilling the driveway, they hit the garage foundation and cracked part of it.
Oh,
Thankfully, we had a good builder who
Sure.
called me right away. He says, they want to just kind of bury this, but I stopped them, and we did. We had to cut
Good.
out a piece of the foundation and repair it. So
sure.
It happens. It happens
It's an easy
all the
mistake
time.
to make.
It is, and,
Yeah.
and people do try to hide things, so it's good to take a look at it. And with new construction, too, a lot of builders will have a 1-year builder's warranty.
Sure.
So we do what's called 11-month inspections. So before that warranty's expired, I come in, I perform a whole inspection on the house, and again, we're looking for things that might have either been missed during the building process or came up within the first year. Things settle,
Yep.
over the first year. We get, pops in our drywall. We get doors that don't work, windows that don't open and close properly. We can note all that and have the builder fix it beforehand, before that warranty runs out.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good point. So it sounds like, honestly, it sounds like it's pretty much just as important regardless of the age of the home, whether it's brand new or it's an older home, there's going to be things that are going to come up
There is.
and
there is.
protect your investment.
My
right?
own house, I can list things. I have
Sure.
defects in my own house, and it's
Sure.
a 5-year-old house.
Yeah. What do that's a kind of an interesting point. What does a home inspector do with defects in their own home? Are you like, okay, I got to immediately jump on this and fix this? Are you constantly like
Yeah, it depends
doing a
what
little
it is. Yeah,
inspection?
it is. Your mind's always wandering. You go on
Yeah.
vacation and you're looking at things. We were at an Airbnb a while ago, and I'm like,
Oh,
we're missing
sure.
carbon monoxide detectors, and there's outlet covers missing, and
Yeah, for sure.
so it was.
What, by the way, so obviously you had a lot of like industry experience with construction and everything, but to get, there's like a certification, right,
is,
for
yep.
home inspecting?
So to be a licensed home inspector, you have to take, basically you have to pass a national exam.
Sure.
In order to pass that exam, you're going to have to do some studying.
Oh, I believe it.
A lot of times people take that test and they fail it the first time. I
Yeah.
thankfully didn't. I passed it.
He's a good one. Call him.
So there's a national exam you have to pass.
Sure.
And then there's also the Wisconsin state test that you have to pass, and that's
Okay.
mostly on standards that permit to the different things with a home inspector. Basically, like we can't work on a house for 2 years afterwards and things like that. So it kind of works with stuff like that.
Okay.
Again, with the national exam, in order to pass that, you're going to have to do a lot of studying. And so
believe
I
it.
went through a course called AHIT, which is actually located in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee.
Okay.
And then they also had a 2-week course in person. So not only was it online, but we went through houses together too,
Sure.
and did stuff. Wisconsin just changed the law now too, where you have to have 20 hours of hands-on experience. So it's
Okay.
basically like shadowing another inspector.
Sure.
So we're starting to get a lot of calls with that. People want to get into the
Okay.
industry and say, "Can I shadow you?"
Yeah.
So, and that works. And then there's continuing education. So
Sure.
every 2 years we have to have 40 hours of continued education to maintain our
Yeah.
license.
40 hours?
Well-
Holy cow.
Yeah.
And I would assume we have what, like
It's like
20
20 minutes.
something?
Yeah, no, and it has to be documented. So I'm a
No one
member-
from the state come after us. It's definitely at least
I-
20 some hours.
I honestly feel like it's only like 5 hours or something. It's not that much.
Well, that's because we kind of maybe blow through it. But the
can also
point
watch
is,
the
like,
video
with
at,
what
like,
you're
1.5.
doing, I'm sure there's always like new codes coming up and new things, right, that you need to
There
know
is,
about.
and it's important to note. So, as a home inspector, we're not technically a code inspector, and the reason
Sure.
why is because the codes change so often.
Yeah.
And we can't really inspect a 1920s house to today's standards. You know, there's just certain things that aren't going to work.
Right.
We still use code though as a guide to make it safe for our clients. So
Sure.
if we go into the house and we're missing handrails, we're missing GFCI protection, there's other safety issues that we're seeing that really should be changed, smoke alarms, things like that. We're going to note that as a defect or as a safety issue.
Sure.
Or at least recommend that it gets improved up to today's standards. But again, there's certain things that we're just not going to be able to change in
Sure.
an older house
Sure.
to meet today's codes.
So that's a good point. So if something isn't to code, it's not technically a defect, correct?
Correct. However, because of what the safety hazard it creates makes it the defect. So it's kind of
Okay,
hard. So
sure.
again, we go up to a sink, and if we're missing GFCI protection by the outlets next to it, we're going to call that a defect because it's a safety hazard regardless of what age of the house is.
Gotcha.
If we're going down a basement steps and it doesn't have the right clearance because it's an older house, we're not going to list that as a defect because we just chalked it up as an old house.
Got it. People were just shorter back in the day.
Exactly.
Right?
So, well, if we're missing a handrail, that's something
Sure.
that's easily correctable. So
Sure.
we'll say, hey, let's get a handrail on here and fix it. So
Okay. Interesting. The whole process just fascinates me because
It is.
on our end too, we've seen and worked with every expectation level over the years.
I'm sure.
Everybody from like, and you.
Yeah.
It's so funny too because I always say to the other party, let's just say that we have the buyer and I'm talking to the listing agent and I'm like, you know what, these buyers, they're super easygoing. I don't think this will be a problem whatsoever. You never know
Nope.
until you actually get that home inspection report back what is important
exactly.
to somebody else. You just never know. So I never even use that anymore. And like when I have a listing and agents tell me that too, I'm like, okay, yep.
Yep, we'll
That's
see.
nice. Yeah, we'll see what really happens once it comes back. Because there are times where it's like, you're bracing yourself. You're thinking, okay, this house is a little older. There's going to be a lot of things. And some people are just much more, I think, again, realistic in their expectations of what's really important and
Exactly.
what's
And you did. You
No.
nailed the point. I mean, I'll get some clients where we have a lot of electrical issues in
Yeah.
the house. I'm thinking, well, they're going to ask for this repairs. And it comes out that their dad's an electrician. And they say, that none of this worries us. So you just never know.
Sure.
Or it comes out that their dad knows nothing about electrical work and is demanding that they get everything fixed.
And that happens too. Shout out to all the wonderful parents out there. We love you. But you know what I always joke too is like someday I'm going to be the worst because I'm going to be the mom that's like, well, when I was a realtor and I knew all my things from like 20 years ago and,
Where are those
Everything's
window
changed.
screens?
nothing will ever be good enough for my lovely children, of course.
No,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay, so let's talk about some funny things that have happened, Dale. What are some of the craziest things that you have seen on home inspections?
So first of all, again, we talked about the booking process, and the sellers know we're coming.
Yes.
And I have access, lockbox access to get in the house, and I always ring the bell if nobody answers, and I open
Sure.
the door, I go in. It's not uncommon to still find someone sleeping, so I've been now in the habit of,
Yep.
I shout who I am. I'm here because for safety issues. And,
Right.
but you'll go through a house, you'll find someone sleeping or showering, or you never know. So those are always awkward. We're working with the
Yeah.
clients, so.
You're like, hi.
But I mean, really, through the inspection process, I really try to only look at the house. I don't look
Sure.
at the seller's personal belongings. I mean,
Sure.
I don't pay any attention to that. But once in a while, certain things will jump out at
Stick
you.
out. Yep.
I had one a while ago where beautiful house, and they had a partially finished basement. But then when you get to the utility room in the basement, they had like a doctor's exam room set up. I mean, it had the exam table, X-ray readers, all kinds of medical equipment, and this was next to the
Interesting.
furnace and water heater and electrical panel. And
It's a real,
it wasn't-
real interesting black market
kidney
doctor's
harvesting,
office.
is what-
Right, yeah.
I joked
right.
my wife. I said, if I come home missing a kidney,
You know what happened.
So I
my
don't know,
gosh.
So
Yeah.
you kind of pause from all these stuff like that. But,
That's so funny.
who
Oh my
knows
gosh.
what's going on there? But and we also, I get hired for other things than just home inspecting. So I'll inspect an entire house, or sometimes it's just an individual component. Someone will say, I need you to look at my roof because I think, the contractor did bad work.
Sure.
Or I had maybe a possible leak or things like that. I had a client a while ago, she hired me to inspect just her attic. I said, okay.
Okay.
Showed up to the house, and then she got into details about it. She says,
Oh, Lord.
I believe my neighbor comes in at night and sleeps in my attic,
Okay.
steals my Wi-Fi, he steals my heat, and he plays white noise to keep me up at night. So I said, well, that's a lot to unbox, but okay.
Yeah, wow, okay.
So, she said, I've called the police multiple times, but they refuse to go in the attic because they don't see any signs of forced entry or anything like that. She said, I
Okay.
need you to go in the attic and document. There's probably going to be clothes up there. There's going to be cooking utensils. I know it, sleeping stuff. Document all this so I can get the police back involved. So, I'm like, all right, I set up my ladder. And as I'm climbing the ladder, I'm thinking, maybe I'm not prepared for this.
Right, like, what am I actually
gonna
going to get
find,
myself into?
So
Yeah.
Thankfully, there was nothing up there, and
my
what I was able to do, though, was take a bunch of pictures and show the client that not only was there nothing up there, but
Sure.
it would be impossible for someone to be living up there because the insulation is super high. There's nothing to even stand on.
Sure.
It's a very crowded space. So hopefully I was able to provide her, some
a
reassurance.
little sense of relief. That's a
Right.
good point, though, too, because I remember, we grew up in the same, Nick and I obviously grew up in the same house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And surprise for our new viewers, we're related. We had one of those pull-down attics.
Sure.
And it scared the heck out of me. I don't want anything to do with going up there.
Yeah.
You don't know what's up there. It's usually hot.
Yep.
It smells fun. No, thank you. I don't want anything to do with it.
And the weird thing is, looking back, that was almost a brand new house because that house was built in 1986.
Oh, sure.
The house that we grew up in?
Yeah.
Weird. I did not even know that.
Right? Like, looking back, it's like, oh, this house is ancient. But yeah,
Interesting.
That
yeah, like
Yeah.
our mom.
We
moved
grew up in
there.
we grew up in the ghetto of Darboy, as we
Okay.
like to
Oh,
call
boy.
it. So the ghetto of Darboy. No offense to anyone that lives in the ghetto of Darboy, because it's all very, very, very nice. But we grew up in one of the original neighborhoods. So when I grew up there, it was literally mostly farm fields.
Sure.
We grew up off of a street off of Emmons. So it was
in my
there was
day.
back in my day there was a couple streets and everything else was farm fields, and I would bike. I would go up to the Darboy Plaza, and this was obviously when the Darboy Club was still
There,
alive
yeah.
and well. That was
Yeah.
my first job. I cleaned up after weddings on the weekends. It was a great first job because I knew I
Sure.
didn't want to do that forever. But yeah, no, I get that. Attics, going back to the attic thing, they're scary.
Right?
I would do the same thing. I would not.
Yep.
I would not want. Okay, so funny story, actually. One time, several years ago, this Murphy's Law, when my husband goes out of town, is when something goes wrong.
Absolutely.
Oh, I know this story.
Yeah, it's a real good one. Okay, so I had my little guy Jay. He was probably maybe a year old, and we lived in a quad level home in Darboy, in the newer part of Darboy, and so I'm sitting in the kitchen, and there's kind of one of those, from the kitchen you can look down and you can also go up the stairs, right? Because it's a quad. So there's kind of one of those half walls there, and all of a sudden I hear this flapping, banging in the wall.
Oh,
And I'm like, what was that?
Yeah.
Freaking out. And then we're just sitting there quietly, and then I hear it again and again. So my husband's in a conference out of state. So I called my mom, who her and our stepdad live minutes away. And I'm like, somebody needs to come over here immediately. Something is in our wall.
Yeah.
And I remember I was so freaked out by it. I wouldn't even let Jay sleep in his crib that night because his room was on the other side of other side of that wall. And I was so concerned that somehow this bird, bat, whatever it was
Sure.
situation was going to bust right through the wall. So anyways, our stepdad came over, and he said it was a bat. A bat got in through one of the open vents or whatever.
Furnace exhaust.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was
sure.
just hanging out, chilling in our wall.
It's amazing how many bats we find in attics.
Oh,
And they're very telltale. They've always got the same piles of droppings,
oh dear God.
Raccoons too.
I don't know how you do it. What's the scariest thing you've ever, like, creature?
Raccoon in an attic. Yeah,
Raccoon
they're not
in an
happy
attic.
when you meet them.
No.
Yeah, because you don't want to corner a raccoon.
No.
I love raccoons. My daughter
Yeah.
and I go camping all the time. And
Sure.
We're always, on the lookout for
Yeah.
raccoons at night. It's fun.
But you don't
yeah,
want to see them in the attic?
Not in the attic. Yeah,
Okay.
they're not happy.
And that's kind of one nice thing about Wisconsin is that like that's about the scariest thing that you will find.
Right.
I
We
mean,
don't
you
have
might
the
find
big
like a black
snakes.
bear, but
That's a good point.
you're not gonna find a snake. No
Well,
crocodiles.
hold on. Last weekend,
Not a
I saw a
venomous
girl.
snake.
No, you're right. But I did see a girl last weekend, a realtor, that posted a picture of a bunch of, like, a pile of snakes. I'm sure they were just like garden snakes or
Yeah.
whatever, but they were like down by a property she was showing by the water. And I was like, oh, heck no.
We're done.
I wouldn't do so good with that. I get a little creeped out.
Yeah.
Do you find a lot of other critters, a lot of mice, a lot of,
Probably
yeah.
one out of every 6 houses I go into.
Really?
There's rodent holes or infestations in the attic. And it could be past infestations, but
Sure.
you don't know. So you have to note it as an issue. And
Yeah.
then the sellers can come back and say, oh, we had that taken care of, or maybe they don't know about it. So,
Right.
it turns into a process with that too. So
What are some of the best ways to avoid mice?
there's basically going around our house and looking for ways that they
Asking
get
for
in.
a friend.
Yeah. So one of the big things is in our siding, if we have vinyl siding, the
Yeah.
corner pieces, you can stick your hands up into it. It's like a super highway. They can run right up and get into their soffits and into our attic. So
Oh, lovely.
I take little copper SOS pads and I shove them in there. They
Okay.
fit perfect. You can use stainless steel like steel wool.
Sure.
But that rusts, so the copper doesn't. So that's why I like to using those. They make little snap-on covers that go underneath them too, but the SOS pads fit perfect in there. You can buy them as a
Okay.
12-pack at Home
Sure.
Depot. So that's one way. Again, soffits. Looking at our soffits, especially if we had a new roof put on, when the roofers go up there, if we have one that overhangs, a lot of times they'll have to push that soffit panel up to get their shingles underneath there, and then it doesn't drop back down. And that's a great way for critters to. It's a little super highway for them to get right inside our roof. So
or the vents for furnace, sump pump,
Correct.
dryer.
yeah, it doesn't take much. Even a raccoon, I was surprised because I found one, several of them over the years, but. And then you go on the roof and you're looking for how they got in, and you'll finally find it, and it's just a little spot they can really flatten down and get.
Oh.
They do a lot of damage in your attic. I mean, between moving insulation around, and of course, they're defecating up there, so there's piles of poop everywhere. And,
Well, raccoons are harder to stop too because they can like tear the rubber boots
Yes.
on the roof too, so they can just get in there.
absolutely, yeah, they'll rip
Ew.
a roof right apart to get inside it. Yeah.
Oh, now I'm itchy. Okay, don't mind me while I'm just over here dying a little bit slowly inside. Do they come for, do you feel, okay, so like, for example, a lot of times people think they come for like, bad food or like if you,
Right.
or is it more just
warmth? It's a great place to stay, and that too brings up a great point. Even just around our house, the box sills, which is going to be the space between our foundation and where our floor starts in our house. We
Sure.
have all of our floor joists. If we have holes, and that's where a lot of mice get into our basement, is through that box sill area.
Sure.
Is they're sensing the heat coming out through that area.
Okay.
They don't see very well, but they're sensing that heat, and they say, "What a great spot! I want to come in and live in there." So,
Sure.
If we have it insulated very well, spray foam is a great product. They don't have that heat coming through. Now they can chew through spray foam, but if they don't
Yeah.
see any need to come in the basement, they're not going to come in. So,
Got it.
yeah.
So basically, if
They're
I
looking for a
keep my
spot to
house
live.
cold
Yeah.
and uninviting,
No, nobody will come over.
everyone will
Everyone will
stay
stay
away. I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh. So you've seen some crazy creatures.
Yeah.
You've seen some crazy things over the years.
And as a real estate agent, I'm sure you guys.
Oh,
have
we
lots of
definitely, for sure. I think anytime you deal with the public, right? But
Yeah.
I think if we collectively, we could all write a book
Oh, sure.
together.
I want to know what's the coolest house that you've gotten to.
Ooh, yeah. What's the coolest thing you've ever done?
Or like even just feature of a house.
Like, yeah.
It is every week I go through a house. I'm like, well, that's a neat feature. And sometimes
Sure.
it's a silly little thing. Like,
Yeah.
there was a large family living in a house, and then when they built it, they put a light switch on the doorbell. So right in the hallway, they can literally flip the switch and the doorbell shuts off. So
That's
kids
a
are
good
napping. And
idea.
and
That's
it's
smart.
what a simple little device.
Shout out to all the moms out there that are trying to keep their kids down for a nap. I love that.
So sometimes it's the simplest little
Yeah.
things you just know. You say, well, that's a pretty
Right?
cool little thing. Yeah.
That is cool.
So
So you probably do the same thing, Dale. Like you go home and then you're like, well, you know what? Now I'm going to do this because we do that too.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
Future
oh, I like
house,
this. Now I
yeah.
want this. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Sorry. Coolest house.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many of them. I really
Yeah.
can't pinpoint a certain one that would be
Yeah.
the coolest. Yeah.
You've probably done some big houses,
Yep.
right?
Those are fun.
Yeah.
They do take a while.
For sure. I'm sure they definitely do. That's cool though. I love that. I don't know. That's what's fun about it though too, is it's like every day is different,
It is,
right?
yeah.
Every day is different. Some days you're seeing like the coolest, biggest, most, craziest thing. And then other days it's just like your little, but they're all homes to people.
They are.
Right?
Yeah. And
That's
each
awesome.
one's got a purpose. So,
I love
yeah,
that.
it's neat.
Very cool. So, Dale, what do you think would be like your top 5? I want to know like the top 5 things that all of us as homeowners or, soon to be homeowners can do for maintenance. I know there's a ton of things that
There's
can
a
be
ton of
done.
things, but really, all my clients, when we get done with an inspection, say, what should I start with first? Because
Yeah.
we've talked about so many things.
Right.
And the top thing is going to be safety hazards. So anything that could potentially harm you in your house, let's get rid of that
Sure.
first.
Sure.
So no sense in owning a house if we're no longer alive, right? So
Right.
so that's typically going to be electrical issues is usually the number one thing. We're missing. I find this every week. Missing carbon dioxide detectors or smoke detectors. They need to be in our house. They need to be maintained. They do expire after 10 years. Batteries should be replaced every year. So that's the big ones is
Sure.
safety hazards. But then after that, I say let's start on the outside of the house because
Okay.
we want to maintain our structure so we can't cause any damage to the inside. And now, unfortunately, when you buy a brand new house, you want to go inside, you want to paint, you want to do flooring, you want to do all that fun stuff. But we really, if we have some major issues on the outside, that should be addressed first. So of course, roof is a big one. If we have anything going on there that's going to leak into our house, typically it's going to be flashings around chimneys. It's going to be the chimney itself. It's going to be roof boots that are torn. Then after that, it's going to be any exposed wood outside, that needs priming and painting and caulking, or any penetrations through the outside. A lot of times we find holes in there that are allowing water to come into our house, missing siding, all those kind of things are the big ones to, again, start from the outside, make sure that we're maintaining your house so, the weather doesn't cause any damage to it.
Well, yeah, and we live in a climate where
Very tough state.
snow's melting a lot, rain. We have all the things.
It changes every
Yep.
week. 2 weeks ago, I was cutting my grass and I was dodging
Right?
snow piles.
I know.
I was literally going around snow
What the
piles.
heck? Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
one of the big things, and of course you see this on every inspection report, is grading. The dirt around our house settles. Oh, I got it. The dirt around our house settles over the years,
Yep.
and we do need to maintain that. Otherwise, the water gets next to the foundation. It does one of two things: is it either leaks into our basement, which is not
Sure.
a fun thing to have, or it causes damage to the foundation.
Yep.
The hydrostatic pressure of that water pushes the foundation in and causes damage. So,
Which is so shocking to me.
Yeah.
Like when I first learned about water causing hydrostatic pressure to walls.
Right.
And literally that's how most, cracking and bowing and things. I'm like, what? Water does all that?
There's so much pressure behind that. And then we have expansive soils in our area too, especially in the Neenah Menashe area. The clay around there can expand and contract greatly.
Sure.
So again, we let that water get next to it, and it expands and it pushes on our walls. So that's why in that area you see a lot of failed foundations.
So crazy.
Yeah.
And we always say gutters and grading, keep that water away from the house. So start from the outside and go
So
through
what's the
that.
best way, Dale, to do my like if I'm going to redo my grading and I don't have a lot of money to spend on it, what am I going to do?
It's actually can be an inexpensive project, if we're willing to do some of the work.
Sure.
It's labor. you
Yeah.
know. So a couple years ago, I had a whole truckload of dirt dropped off my driveway, pulverized topsoil, so that's good top grade stuff.
Okay.
It was like $325,
Okay.
for an entire dump truck full of dirt.
Sure.
And then after that, I needed a shovel and a wheelbarrow.
Okay.
So, and I wheeled it around the house and filled in all my low spots. So it really isn't an expensive project.
Sure.
If you hired it out, that would be a landscape contractor.
Yeah.
Then of course it's going to add up. But as a do-it-yourself project, it's very doable. If you want to make it a party, you can bring some friends over.
That's the way to do it.
pizza and some
Pizza,
beer,
yep. Is there a certain pitch that it's supposed to be away from, like the dirt and whatever you have on top of your dirt away from your home?
Yep. So we want a 1/2 inch per foot for at least the first 6 feet.
Okay.
That's the kind of number that we're shooting for. And it wouldn't hurt after we're all done to put some heavy duty plastic on top of that too. Before
Sure.
we put our landscape material back on top of there.
Which also helps weed control.
Sure does. So we want to keep any of that water away from our foundation. So
Sure.
I can guarantee you on my drive home today, I'm going to see missing downspout extensions on a lot of houses. And that's such a common thing during home inspections too, and it's such an easy fix. They sell them right at the hardware stores, and I get a lot of people that say, "Yeah, I put them on, but they blow off in the wind." And that's true.
Yep.
2 self-tapping screws will fix that problem. So,
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's all
Get
it
those
takes.
gutters and downspouts. Keep your downspouts clean.
Yep.
And your gutters clean, and then keep them attached and divert it away, because you're diverting the water away
foundation.
from the foundation.
Yep.
What do you do when you have the driveway that's butted up to the foundation?
That can be a tough one. 'Cause
Right?
they settle, right? And there's 2 fixes for that generally. One is mud jacking. We can get a company to come in and drill holes in the concrete and pump either mortar or foam underneath there to lift that back up.
Sure.
Otherwise, the replacement is the next option. Is then, we have to cut out the damaged concrete or the defective concrete and report it. So that's a not only expensive process, but it's labor intensive. It makes a lot of mess and everything. So
For sure. I see so many, and I'm sure you do too, where it's like you pull in the driveway
you're settled.
and you see the if the driveway is, again, like butted right up to the house, you're like, the driveway's kind of sloping or cracking. You're like, oh, this basement is not
that's
going
a
to
lot
look
of
so
pressure on the walls,
good. Yeah.
So, and foundation repairs, as you know, are very expensive.
Very
so anytime we
expensive.
can prevent that. That's a big thing.
100,000%. The foundation is everything, right? I always say it's just like a relationship.
Yeah.
You've got to have a good foundation.
Exactly.
So like you said, it's exciting when you buy something. Like me too, I'm a girl. I want to like get in there and paint and
Yeah.
put in my little Joanna Gaines touches. But shiplap. We need to, I want to shiplap everything. And, but we got to focus on the things that are really going to,
Affect the structure of
could
the
really
house.
affect things
Yep.
too. Yeah.
So again, it's not the fun stuff, and
Right.
I always say, I get it, I
Yeah.
get it. So it's nice, and I love working with first time home buyers.
Sure.
So because we can kind of discuss some of the ways that we can mitigate some of these problems.
Right.
Without spending a lot of money. Sometimes,
Yeah.
that's fun to be able to try to figure that out.
100%. I feel like if more people knew about grading,
Right.
and how it's really not, like you said, it's labor intensive, but it's not like it's that expensive of a thing to
Right.
do. I think a lot more basements would be saved.
Better shape.
And I feel like it's mentioned on at least 90% of inspections.
Sure is.
Yeah, it is. But again, it's just not exciting or fun. So it's
No.
not one of those things. Now, because I've seen, and the 3 of us have all seen the worst of the worst.
Yep.
I'm like, I go around every single spring, my whole entire house, and we're looking at, the whole, how the grading is looking, and
for
because we
sure.
have dirt and mulch, and it's like that easily starts to get washed away and worn down, and scary stuff.
And that's always fun we call it like the flipped houses too, is you'll see the grading looks good, but it's just mulch, and you'll pull it away and the dirt will be settled to the house.
Yes, yeah, not so good.
So yeah,
So electrical stuff, like you said, safety hazards
Yeah.
in general, like you said, smoke and carbon monoxide detectors literally save lives. And then exterior things like the siding, not having, holes or penetrations for the mice and the critters
Yeah,
and all the things, and grading, foundation stuff, anything else that you think is like really, really big for maintenance.
that would be the top ones.
Mm-hmm.
Then after that, and I'm a big fan of do-it-yourself.
Sure.
I recommend anybody to go out there and try fixing things. And you may fail the first time. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's how you learn.
It is.
It
We
really
have
is.
so many resources nowadays
Sure.
with Google and YouTube.
I was
and
going
all
to
this
say,
stuff.
right?
But
Yep.
if we're gonna do it yourself, do the homework first.
Yes.
Do some research on it. Read the instruction manual, because that's a lot of the things that we find during our inspection process is failed do-it-yourself projects.
I believe it. God bless all the do-it-yourselfers out there.
Yeah.
I agree, but how many times, especially I feel like people that try to finish their basement, and you go in the basement and immediately, if you have any sort of knowledge of the home industry, it's like, I can tell this one was a little bit of a DIY
you
job,
can, the
right?
fit and finishes and
Yeah.
stuff, right?
So
Yeah,
it's like, just make sure that you're doing things properly, because otherwise you just run into more problems
and you end up
down the
throwing away
road.
a lot of money.
Exactly.
So, and pulling permits is a big thing.
Yes.
And I'm guilty. I've done my own work. I'll just quick throw this in. I don't need a
Mm-hmm.
permit. But the reason why we have the permit process is for safety.
Mm-hmm.
It's so we can get somebody to come in and inspect their work and make sure we did it properly.
Sure.
For safety. It isn't
Right.
so the city can get some money off that permit fee.
Right.
It really isn't. It's not a big fee.
Right.
Typically, it's about $75 to pull a permit for something small.
Sure.
And basically, the way the rules work for that is that you can repair anything you want. Change light fixtures out, outlets, sinks, the whole works. But if you're adding on to that, so if you're going to add outlets, if you're going to add light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, that's when you need to pull a permit for that. So, and again, it's so your local inspector can come in and take a look at that and make sure you did it properly. And they usually give you a couple tries. You know, if you did something wrong, they'll let you know, and they'll say, "Oh, fix it. We'll come back and
Sure.
we'll check it again." You know, so
They're not going to like kick you out.
no,
You're not.
absolutely not. No, years ago I did it, and
Sure.
it was very informative, for them to come through and say, "Oh, here you kind of missed this, but again, here's the rules, and we'll come back and reinspect it when you fix it." So
Sure.
And what was great about it is that when I went to sell my house,
Yeah.
is I knew I wasn't going to have any issues.
Well,
And that's the big thing,
Yeah,
because it was
Dale,
done
I mean-
properly and it was signed off on by the city inspector.
How does a home inspector sell their house, by the way? Like, what would happen if you were selling your house and the buyers asked for a home
I
inspection?
would love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And there are things. So just this winter, and as you know, I always
Sure.
put up a big Christmas light
Yes,
display.
you do.
I went up in my attic and oh my gosh, I started this wiring project last year and I never finished it. So there are things that any homeowner can find it.
Sure.
So if I were to sell my house today, I would basically do my own inspection on it.
Yep.
I would walk around, and any homeowner can do this if you're selling your house. Test everything, make sure doors and windows are all working. Go in your attic, see if there's any surprises up there. If you've done any work, make sure it's completed,
Right.
And then absolutely, I'd welcome any home inspector to come in and check it out. And maybe I missed something. Who knows?
Sure.
But,
Sure.
But I wouldn't have any issues with it because I have that knowledge that I pre-inspected it. And
Yep.
I feel very confident that it was ready to go.
Good. I think that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, checking all of the user operable things.
Exactly. Yeah. there's-
Switches, doors,
Yep,
windows.
yep. Even just simply when people put their houses on the market, check your lights. Because if a light bulb is burnt out, I can't take that apart and change the bulb to figure out what's going on with it. I can simply note on my report that it didn't function as it's intended, and then now it's on the buyer or the seller to prove that it works.
Right.
It's just a lot of
Right.
extra paperwork and process
For sure.
everybody. Where if we would just simply go through our house and make sure everything's working properly,
Yeah.
it makes a big difference. Even here's another one we run across a lot. It would be things that are shut down. So if your fireplace is turned off, I can't test it. I'm not allowed to light pilot lights. I have to assume that it's turned off for a reason. Plumbing fixtures. If you've got a bathroom in the basement that you don't use very often, so you have everything turned off, I'm not going to turn those back on because I have to assume that maybe it leaks. We don't want to cause
Sure.
damage. So
Yeah.
if you're selling your house, make sure everything's functioning before
good point.
the inspector comes in. Exterior light
Prep
fixtures.
for
are
it a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they're usually burnt out ones that we're not using very often. Hose bibs should be turned on if it's the summertime so we can
Sure.
test them.
Test that. Exactly. Yeah, no, that brings up a really good point because there's so many times that it's like, yeah, if you're selling, basically don't leave anything to be a mystery. We don't need to, we don't want to be
Exactly.
detectives.
No. And I'll tell you what, everybody's detective hat goes on when they see little things and they do start
Yeah.
thinking, what are they covering up? I get a lot of clients that say, what are they
Exactly.
hiding? And, oh my gosh, I don't believe they intentionally hid this, but so it is. So don't put that out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is such a good point too, because I feel like, and I think I always say sometimes if buyers and sellers, if we all sat down together at a table,
Yeah.
a lot of things would be worked out.
For sure.
Not always, but I think a lot of times they would be. Because everything is kind of so much done under the cloak of darkness,
Yep.
I think people are so quick to assume
They are.
that, those sellers are covering that up. They were totally covering that up. And like you said, though, earlier, you don't always even remember
No.
everything that's going on in your house. We have other responsibilities. Life gets busy.
Exactly.
I mean,
Well, yeah, like we'll get sellers that are like, oh, do you think that we should paint the walls quick before we take listing photos to make it look better? And it's like, well, yeah, you could do that, but it's still going to be wet by the time people come through, and they're going to be going,
Yeah.
what the heck? Why do
What
they
do they
paint
cover?
every wall in the house?
right?
Yeah. No, it is.
Yeah. It's an interesting process.
It is.
The whole thing is an interesting process. But like you said, it's a lot of fun. It's exciting. It should be fun.
Correct.
And again, a home inspection is meant to be a good, informative insurance kind of a thing, where it's like, what you're buying.
Right.
And,
Yep.
so.
You know, one thing that I think Dale does really well, just to give you some
thanks.
advertising here.
Yeah. Shout out to Dale.
Oh, thanks.
Mark of a good home inspector is also like when the buyer is there with you at the inspection, you do a lot to like mitigate their fear.
Oh, sure.
Because sometimes, yeah, if you just get an inspection report back and you're like, there is so
they
many
look crazy.
pages of
They look
defects, what's
crazy.
going on? Yeah, and then buyer flips out. But like when you're there and you can walk them through like, oh, this is, what it might take to fix this. And, this is how this typically happens. And, all that kind of stuff, they go, oh, okay, I get it.
It is
And they just
unpredictable. They're
profit.
scary, and I do try to again, get people to know ahead of time what the expectations are going to be when they get that report, because we have to do
Yeah.
a summary page, and they're large. They have a lot of information there, and they can make someone really say, wow, what is that? But when we get to the nitty gritty, sometimes it is simply just a $5 tube of caulk is what we're talking about, or just a simple repair, or something that we find on every single house.
Right.
Anti-tip brackets on stoves, they're missing on every house,
Sure.
including my own.
Sure.
But we have to note that because it's a safety issue. We want to make sure our
Absolutely.
clients, know
Well, and
what it is.
that's the thing. You're so right, because everybody will say, gosh, these home inspectors are so picky. And I'm like, well, that's their job to be
Right.
picky.
We've
If
been
they're
hired to be
not
picky.
doing exactly. You've been hired to do that. If you're not going through everything with a fine tooth comb, then what's the point, right? You're there to expose everything. And then it's the rest of our jobs to all sit and talk about, okay, now of these things,
What's important?
what's important,
Yep.
right? What's really important to you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer or seller? What do we need to, what do we really need to address?
Sure.
What can we maybe just kind of file in the back of our minds that is going to come up? Because there's always going to be something.
Always.
Always. I mean, every single time with my house that I'm like, okay, we just did this and this and this. We're good for a while. There's another thing, right?
You know
And
what?
that's home ownership.
And everybody's opinion of what a defect is can be a little bit different too.
For sure.
So you can get one inspector that'll come through and say, I think that's all right. And the next guy might say, well, I could potentially see this being an issue. So
Sure.
yeah.
Well, you have to cover yourself.
Correct,
Right? I
yeah.
mean, if you do miss things, ooh.
Right. Yeah, it
Yeah.
can get ugly. We're actually legally responsible for a house for up to 2 years after we inspect it.
Wow.
Which
Yeah.
is crazy because a builder is responsible for up to 0 years.
Right.
So
Weird how that works.
It's so weird how
Yeah. Hmm.
that works. So sometimes they get a little crazy. They're like, well, how come you were so picky on our new house? Well,
If I was responsible for a house for 2 years, I would be.
yeah.
I would
Yeah.
be looking at everything.
Exactly.
Everything.
Yeah, so we do get quite picky on all that.
I'd be like, this trim piece is crooked.
Yeah. I'm
No,
just
it's
noting it.
cosmetics, yeah.
I'm just noting it.
Yeah, for sure. So
Dale, what do you think, in closing, some of the things are that people can watch for, in their own homes in terms of typical lifespans? And I know everything is different, but just typical lifespans, some of the mechanicals and things like that.
yeah, good question. Again, smoke and carbon monoxide detectors are the most ignored thing. I started this year actually. Every house I inspect that's missing a carbon monoxide detector, if it's missing them entirely, I put $1 in a jar. And so at the end of the year, we're going to find out how much I have in there. And
That's
It's
awesome.
getting pretty full already.
Tune in. We'll all find out.
We will.
I love that.
So that's probably one of the most
Sure.
neglected things is going to be smoke and carbon monoxide
Yeah.
detectors. I'm trying to think after that what we have, that gets ignored quite a bit. Or I guess your question was life
Well, I feel like
expectancy on
water
things.
heaters are something that it's always sort of like, how long do they last,
And
right?
that's over the board. It really comes down to first. I mean, of course, quality of the water heater, but quality of the water. So if we're living in Kakwana with the hard water, we might only get 5 years out of it. Even Darbo
Sure.
here, we have some really acidic water, and I mean, about 7 years I've been replacing mine.
Sure.
So where other times I'll get out in the country and we'll find a 45-year-old water heater. So
Wow.
it's crazy. So that's kind of all over the board. It's hard to. They
Sure.
say typical life expectancy is 8 to 12 years on a water heater.
Okay.
A furnace would be about 20 years. Same
Okay.
with a boiler, typically a little longer, about 30 years.
Okay.
Asphalt shingles on a roof should be about 25 years. Again, comes down to the quality of them. You can get ones that are thicker that claim to be 35, 40 years.
Okay. Does it matter? This is an interesting thing because we had our roof replaced probably 2 summers ago.
Sure.
And everybody was, coming through the neighborhood and the storm chasers, as some would
Correct,
call
yes.
them. Does it matter who you use for that kind of thing?
Absolutely does.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this past month, I've had some new construction houses where I went up on the roof, and the quality of the new roof was just absolutely. I have some pictures on my Facebook page where
Sure.
there's all these exposed nail heads.
Okay.
It was wavy. It was just all kinds of
yeah, I
issues
saw that.
weren't. This roof is going to leak. It's absolutely going to leak. So, and that's a brand new house.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And then I get on to the next house, and it's the same thing. Roofing contractor called me. He says, yeah. He says, you found us on a bad day. He says, apparently I need to train my employees. We've got some bad stuff going on.
Sure.
So again, it really does matter in who
Okay.
we hire.
Yeah, that's good to know.
You can put a shingle on wrong and cause it to leak. And if it's installed incorrectly too, the manufacturer of that it'll void the warranty, So if you say, hey, we've got some issues, but it's a 25-year warranty, not really, because they're going to come and they're going to nitpick it and say, well, it wasn't put on correctly, null and void.
Gotcha.
So, and
Okay.
then that
Oh,
storm
that's good to
chaser
know.
could be out of business by then.
Yeah,
too.
that's
So-
true. Yeah, good point. What about like air conditioning units?
Yeah, there was about 25 years too.
Okay.
Same with the furnace. I do find around here they're usually older than the furnace because we only use them for
Sure.
6 months of the year.
Yep.
So they generally last a little bit longer. To segue on that, though, we can say to make it last even longer is not to completely cover them during the wintertime.
Okay.
You find those wonderful covers that, like we can bag them up. And
Sure.
It looks great, and I did it. My first house I bought that cover. I put it on.
Yeah.
I'm doing the right thing, And then I pulled it off in spring, and not only was it rusty inside, but the mice had moved in. They said, hey, thanks for building us this nice little house. So what it is the units need to breathe, So if you want to put something on top to keep the leaves in the fall from falling in, and the snow and ice and debris and stuff, that's awesome, but we should let the rest of the unit breathe. So
Okay. That's good to know.
yeah, so generally though, when we get to the air conditioning units, we'll find those are usually about 30 years old or better,
Okay.
and the furnace has been replaced already,
Sure.
So
What about windows?
depends on the
Depends
quality.
on the quality again. Yep.
And really on what you're willing to accept. We
Okay.
can go into a 120-year-old house and they'll have
Sure.
original windows in it still.
Sure.
Yeah.
Are we willing to accept windows that are leaking air? Are we willing to accept windows that don't open very well? Yeah, we can get a lot of life out of them.
Yeah,
So
you see that, I think, especially in Oshkosh a lot, those houses that are like from the 1800s.
Sure.
And it's like, yeah, this is the original front window
Yeah,
that's
it's
got all the cool.
The wavy glass.
grills on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Those
so,
are.
so they can last.
They're cool. They're really cool looking, but it's
Yeah.
like, yeah. So what about, okay, so we see this a lot, and I think a lot of people aren't even necessarily aware of what the defect or damages or dangers
Sure.
or whatever could be, is windows that look foggy, cloudy. Some people just think, oh, my windows are dirty.
Oh, sure.
But what really is going on
So
there?
that's a failed seal. We do run
Mm-hmm.
across it a lot. Sometimes we get houses where almost every window has it, so it's a defect from the manufacturer. But the newer windows are 2 panes of glass or even sometimes 3,
Mm-hmm.
and they're sealed, and we'll get moisture that gets between there, and it's because the seal has gone out on it. So we do list them as a defect, in our inspection reports. They're not allowing water to come into our house, so they're still working, but
Sure.
it's an issue, where you're not going to be able to see out of them very well. So thankfully it's repairable. We can
Okay.
typically get new glass. A glass installer can put just new glass in the window. It's not a new window. There's even some companies in the area that'll drill a small hole in the bottom of the window, and they'll clean the inside with some solvent, and they can seal it back up.
Okay.
And they put a warranty on that as well too. So I don't know how well that works, but it's an option, for like a large picture window.
Sure.
Or something. So
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, kind of neat.
I've heard that the glass can actually shatter, though, too. Is that right, or is that not?
It did. If it was a tempered glass window, but not because of the failed seal. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
with them drilling a hole into it, if it was tempered,
Sure.
that would be an issue. But
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, because we see that a lot, and I think a lot of people aren't even aware of it. They just
What's
think
going
like,
on.
oh, and my windows are dirty or this
Yeah.
or that, and so okay, that's a good one.
failed seal. Yeah, we do get a lot of inspection reports, failed seals. Yep.
Yeah, interesting. Nick, can you think of any other maintenance questions?
I'm trying to think of,
Things that you see a lot out in the field
Yeah.
or in the houses. We're not really in a lot of fields, but
well,
you know.
I mean, another good, important safety one to talk about is fireplaces, like
Oh, yeah.
sort of chimney. Always get that looked at before using it.
Oh, absolutely.
You never know what kind of condition it's going to be in.
And as a home inspector, if it's we can get a bit of a visual examination on it, but we can't see up the entire flue pipe. The way the smoke chamber, like in a wood burning fireplace, there's a smoke chamber inside there, and your damper, and you can't see past that. So we can see a small amount of what's going on with the fireplace, but really, in order to see the entire thing, you need a level 2 inspection, and that's someone with a camera to come dropping down it and look at everything. So, and that's recommended during a real estate transaction is to have a level 2 inspection done on,
Sure.
on a wood burning fireplace. To ensure that we know what condition it's in before we
Right.
because it can be expensive to fix some of that stuff. Gas
Yeah.
fireplaces are especially if they're just a direct vent, it's a lot easier to work with. Even if it meant an entire replacement, again, that's a lot easier versus like a wood burning fireplace. So
Yeah, that's a good point, though. That can be scary.
yeah.
There's a lot of things that can go wrong there.
There's a lot of them that are built wrong, where we get ash pits that still have the wood, inside them and things like that. So we try to look for a lot of that. But again, we get as far as we can as a home inspector, and then usually we'll refer that out, say further evaluation by a qualified contractor to do that level 2 inspection that has the equipment for it. So.
Sure. Okay, I have another good question. I just
Yeah.
thought of this. So, well, I'm like proud of myself. I have a good question. What are some things that you see people or hear about people doing to their homes where we think that we're doing something good, but maybe we're not? Like, for example, are things like gutter covers, are those good?
Sure.
I've heard very differing stories about
yeah.
those. Some people are like,
Your gutter helmet's going to come to us. No.
some homeowners are like, and we just put on all new gutter
Yeah.
covers, and I'm like, okay, I don't know,
They work in certain environments,
Sure.
so they're not going to work for every storm is what it comes down to. Just a general rain, absolutely the certain covers will work. Some of them where the water has to curl around and come back into it. But if you get, those really heavy rain pours, it'll skirt right across the top of it.
Sure.
So we got to look at it and say, okay, well, we've got gutter covers, and that means our gutters are going to work, let's say 80% of the time.
Sure.
All right. Well, that's better than maybe them only working 20% of the time
Yeah.
because they're full of leaves. So
Right.
So what are the trade-offs on it?
Sure.
And if we look at that and we say, well, look, we're in a really treat area, I would have to be up on the roof 6 times a year to clean those out to ensure they're working properly, or I put a cover on it and I know it's going to work on most storms. Mm-hmm. Well, then, maybe that's the right way to go,
Yeah.
I'm in a new neighborhood. I don't have very many trees.
That's a good point.
It's going to be years before I have to worry about this.
Right.
It would be absolutely silly for me to put covers on.
That would be.
So
Right,
it is,
that's a good point.
There's a trade-off. Maybe we're on a small ranch house where it's very easy to get on a roof, and we're at, the physical ability to do that. Oh, maybe I don't want gutter covers then,
Sure.
But
Yeah, that makes sense. You really got to look at your neighborhood and where you live, and do you have a bunch of old mature trees
right,
that are
and your lifestyle and everything. So because there's
Right.
trade-offs for all of it.
Right.
I guess the trend I see a lot with those though sometimes too is the rain chains, where they'll have a chain just where the water runs down instead of a downspout extension, and that I don't understand because all the water is coming right next to our foundation.
So then now we're just back to that problem.
Same problem.
Again, we're trying to
They look great.
get it away from
Yeah,
it.
so,
Right.
but
What about like
nice.
power washing? I feel like everybody gets real excited
Yeah.
about power washing their homes.
You have to be very careful with that, and that's
Yeah.
one of those things. Where too sometimes it's best just to hire a pro. Because
Yeah.
they do it every day. They know how much pressure to use, which tips and nozzles to use, which ways to spray it without getting water in our attics. 'Cause
Right.
It doesn't take much to cause damage. Or if we're putting too much pressure, even just on a vinyl siding, we could leave marks on it. You've seen the pictures of the power wash roof I posted a while ago.
Yes.
That was just awful. Complete damage to the roof by power washing it. Air conditioning units are another one we don't want to power wash. It'll bend over all the fins. I've got some
Yeah.
great pictures of that too. So
I
would
feel
you
like
even
people just
think
get
of
excited.
that?
Even last weekend, I just had
Yeah.
I just had my regular hose out in the front, and I was just cleaning some things off, and it's just
Oh, it's
like
fun to get carried away.
right? It's like, what else can I rinse
Yeah.
down? What else can I hose off? Right?
Exactly, so-
But you might actually be doing. And how often do you think you should power wash? For example, we just got brand new siding, and
Sure.
it's really dark blue last summer. So I feel like I don't even want to touch that.
Right.
Right? Like I don't know.
Shouldn't it again depends on where you're living. So I'm in a newer neighborhood. We still have a lot of dust being kicked up
Sure.
from construction from other houses. So they put our road in a couple years ago. We actually a lot of our neighbors we all got in together. We paid a power washer to do a bunch of houses at once.
Sure.
Which was great.
Yeah.
But now it's been a few years and I've got like a light gray siding. I'm looking to do it again this
Okay.
summer. So it really depends on environment.
But it's not necessarily like every spring. Got to get
No,
out the old
no.
power washer and okay.
Exactly.
Good
We
to
might
know.
have a north.
Makes me feel better too.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you don't have to. You're good. Yeah. So.
Dale said.
Yeah, I don't have to do it this year. So,
Anything else that you see people doing that you're like, oh, maybe we should avoid this, or
Yeah.
or leave it to a professional or anything like
it
that.
really comes down to everybody wants to be a plumber or electrician. I run across that a lot. Again, I
Sure.
love do it yourself. I love saving money, but we can cause so much damage by doing it incorrectly that we have to go back and redo it. I inspected a flipped house a few weeks ago. Where they added all these can lights in the ceiling. They look great, and they retiled the shower, a really nice, beautiful master bath shower. It all had to be ripped out and redone. We get into the attic. All the wiring in the attic was exposed, so he obviously didn't pull permits, to do the electrical work, which, by the way, if you own a house but it's not your primary residence, you can't do work on it that requires a license. So if you're a flipper and you go into a house and you say, look, I'm going to do my own plumbing. I'm going to do my own electrical. You can do that on your own house, but you can't do it on a house that's not your primary residence. And it's for this reason, because they don't want you to create
Interesting.
all these safety issues
Sure.
for the next person.
Sure.
You have to hire those certain things out for a contractor. But even the shower, the tile pan was done wrong, so they had to rip the whole bottom of the shower out and redo it. And it was a lot of materials and labor and time that just was thrown out.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. I think some of the HGTV and all of that too, it's
Sparks a lot of
interesting,
it.
it's
Yes.
fun. I love watching those shows too, but I think sometimes you meet with people that think like, well, I saw this on HGTV, so I'm going to buy this fixer-upper,
Yep.
and this is going to be so simple, and this is going to be so great. And it's like, not always.
Right.
Not always. I think you have to kind of really know what you're getting yourself into, what you're looking at, what you're doing. Because like you said, you can, as I always say, like put lipstick on the pig, right? You can make things look pretty,
Yep.
but is it really solid?
Right.
Because if it's not, you're going to spend a lot of money down the road.
was.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that flipper, they had to go and spend a lot of money to have all that stuff fixed. So
Yeah.
and it looked good. It looked great.
Right.
When I walked through, but when we start getting in the attic and looking at underneath the shower in the basement, and everything was leaking. Every plumbing fixture in the house leaked. So
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that is so scary.
Yeah, it was.
Well, thank goodness we have people like you to do this kind of thing, because literally a home is your biggest asset in almost all cases, right?
Yeah.
So we need good home inspectors out there. So how can people reach out to you besides, obviously, I know that we always sing your praises to all of
appreciate
our
that.
clients.
Yeah, so-
Absolutely. But how can people get in touch with you if they just want to do like a home inspection, like you were saying, or maybe they're thinking about selling or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the phone number is 920-450-4552, and that'll reach me directly.
Okay.
I've also got a website, rightwayinspection.com.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty cool because on that website, you can even book a home inspection. So 2 in the morning, you wake up, you're like,
Yeah.
you just can't sleep, you got to book a home
Yeah.
inspection. Go for it. You can pull up my schedule and go right on there. So
Very
And I
cool.
do everything. So, if you call, I'm the one that answers.
Sure.
I'm the one that's going to be showing up to the house to do the inspection. So it's
You
not-
are, and you're very good
it's not
about
an
it. You're
employee,
very
yeah.
responsive, which
Sure.
I super appreciate. I love that. I think that's so important.
And I even enjoy the calls. Sometimes I get calls where I know I'm not going to make any money, and it's just they're asking questions, and I enjoy them. So people will call sometimes for just advice. They're remodeling their basement. They want to know
Sure.
what to avoid.
Yep.
I had one a while ago. The guy was ripping out a wall in his basement to finish it off. He says, "I'm really worried it's a load-bearing wall. How do I tell?" I said, "Well, where do you live?" And he was literally a few blocks away. I said, "I'm on my way over."
Oh, that's so nice of you.
Yeah, I just went in there and checked out. I said, and it was a load-bearing wall.
Sure.
So, yeah, stop what you're doing.
Yeah, stop. Yeah.
And I don't mind those calls.
Sure.
Even as someone who's looking to buy a house and they're just went through a house for doing a open house, and they said, "Boy, we saw a few things we're curious about."
Yep.
I get those calls once in a while.
Yeah,
It's fun.
That's nice too. And I think something too that I was going to note this earlier that I know is helping because the market has been so competitive,
Right.
as we all know. And so, we never advise someone not to get a home inspection. We always have to educate them on what the market is doing, but we would never suggest that they don't get one. In fact, we highly, highly recommend that they do. But one of the things that buyers, and I'm sure you've seen this, can consider when they're writing an offer too is saying, I want a home inspection.
Yep.
I will reassure the sellers that I will pay the first whatever amount,
amount of dollars.
$1,000,
Yeah.
$2,000, whatever it is
They feel comfortable
that
with,
you feel
right.
comfortable with, so that you're saying, you know what, I'm going to get this peace of mind. I'm going to know what's going on with this property, but I'm not going to, ask for every little thing.
Nitpick.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and that's very helpful. I've found that a lot. We get a lot of contracts, and I like it when my clients tell me up front about that when we start the inspection, because then if I see the small stuff, I can really explain to them how they can just fix it themselves,
Sure.
or approximate dollar cost of what it'll cost.
Right.
So they can kind of have that running tally in their
Yeah.
head. They say, okay, well, I can't ask for this as a repair.
Right.
It's only an X amount.
Yep.
So
And I think that's so
very
important.
helpful
That's so huge, is like just the whole educational piece of it. Right.
And about 20% of my work in the past 2 years has been post inspections.
Sure.
So I just had one yesterday. They closed on the house Friday, and then I came into the house and inspected it for them, as they're
Sure.
moving in.
They want to know what they're dealing with.
Yep, and it really it allows them to make a list of what they need to fix first, and or if they have anything to fix, or
Yeah.
safety hazards and so forth. And at the same time, he was able to learn a lot about his house too, and how to maintain it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. So I know you do one other really cool thing every December, Dale. Would you like to share a little bit
Sure. So,
about that?
I live in Darboy as well too. We built a new house about 5 years ago, and
He's not in the ghetto.
so I love Christmas. I really enjoy electronics as well too.
Sure.
You know, so
Yeah.
I have a Christmas light show in my house that's all animated to music. So you pull up in your car and you tune to a station.
Yeah.
And up comes all the, we typically about 4 different songs. So
It's so pretty. You
It's
do
fun.
such a good job.
what I love, my favorite part is when we get the buses come by, and
Yeah.
I know it's like it'll say retirement homes on it, so I know that they're able to
Yes.
come out and see something and just.
Spreading the magic of this
I hadn't even thought about
Christmas.
that.
I know.
Yeah,
I
no,
love
that's the
that.
best. When I see that the
Aw.
retirement communities come by and check it out. So.
Yeah,
I love
because I normally
that.
think of like kids that want to go
Yeah.
see the lights
Right.
or whatever.
We'll,
Right.
we'll get limos too, because
Sure.
limousines and the
Yep.
like the trolley will come through,
Yep.
and stuff like that. That's fun.
Yeah, your house is always on the list now. I love that.
Yeah, I
and then
appreciate it.
you obviously are so charitable and you give back, right? I think
Sure.
you try to pick do you pick a different organization?
We try to pick something different every
Sure.
year. So this past year we picked an organization again right here in Darboy. They build beds for
That's so
people
cool.
that need it. So
I love that.
They provide a bed, a mattress, and all bedding. For people that need that. So we're able to provide them with some money.
I love
to
that.
help keep that
That
going.
is so nice.
So we're looking for suggestions for this year.
I love that.
We're hoping to do a local.
Sure.
In the past, we've done some large organizations. We said, what?
It's nice though to do
Let's keep it in the 9-2.
in the 920. Well, there's so much going on here,
There is.
right?
There
When you
absolutely
really
is.
stop and look around, there's so many good things. There's also so much need,
There is.
and so absolutely, that's so cool. I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. Well, we'll make sure that once the time of year comes
Yeah.
around again, we're going to focus on summer for now.
Yes.
Once that time comes, we're going to share it all over our page. I know I always take my family by. We just
thanks.
love it. And
Yeah.
and drop some dollars in there. And it's really nice that you guys do that because I know it's a big project,
It
but
is. Yeah.
it's awesome.
Takes about
It's-
3 weeks to put up. So
I believe it. And it's so organized and it's like well, of course you do. Cause of course it's going to be perfect. He's a home inspector, but no, it's awesome. I love it.
appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Very cool. Well, thank you again so
thanks
much
for
for
having me,
being
guys. I
with
enjoyed
us
it.
today.
Thanks,
I
Jill.
feel like I've learned things even that I didn't even know. And
Good.
hopefully everybody else has learned something too.
Sounds good.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Dale.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Well, have a good week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. To contact the Kelly Davies Homes team for all of your buying and selling needs, call 920-791-9047. Find us on Facebook at the Kelly Davies Homes team or go to kellydavieshomes.com.